Coveting has gotten more people into more trouble than probably any other sin in the book, and for good reason. You can make the case that it's where all the other sins start. Now, throughout this series, we've seen again and again how nearly every violation of the 10 Commandments begins in the heart. So why am I telling you now that they begin with coveting? Well, it's pretty simple. Where do you think coveting starts? Pick a sin, any sin. And when you think about it, almost across the board, the driving motivation behind disobeying any of God's commandments is going to begin with the words, I want. So the 10th and final commandment reads like this: You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. It starts with coveting, but then where does it go? Well, human history is fraught with people who have wanted and who have even killed for their neighbor's house. They've committed adultery with their neighbor's wife. They've stolen their neighbor's oxen and donkeys and lied about everything else along the way. Left unchecked, covetousness paves the way for all manner of sins. Now, let me clarify something. There's nothing wrong with wanting things, but there is something wrong with obsessing over the things you want. There's an important difference between wanting a car like your neighbor's and wanting your neighbor's car. It's when our wants become our gods that we break the 10th commandment, and consequently, the very first commandment along with it. So how do we steer clear of covetousness? How do we overcome the sin from which so many other sins are born? Well, first, Jesus cautioned his disciples that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. That's an important lesson, and that lesson is as simple as it is powerful. Your heart will naturally focus on whatever is most important to you. Now, that's a great lesson. It's a great template for being able to evaluate ourselves. It's not easy to be honest with ourselves, but if we can identify the direction that our thoughts and actions are drifting, then we can identify where our heart is, and more importantly, where our treasure will be. Now, the next step is where things get a little tougher. The problem with covetousness is that it replaces God and his wants with our wants and our desires. So the key to beating covetousness is to put God and his word back on top of the list. That means changing our definition of treasure, what is valuable. That means changing our hearts. And that's not something we can do on our own. God alone has the ability and the power to master the human heart. We can't change our hearts without his help. But the more we seek God, the more we come to him in prayer, in studying his word, in fasting, in meditating, and in repenting, the more we'll find ourselves with a malleable heart, willing to be molded in the perfect hands of our Creator. And just like that, we're back to the first commandment. Put God first, and everything else will fall into place. Of all the commandments, which one matters the most? We'll cover that important question in our next video. And for further reading, you can download our free booklet, God's 10 Commandments, Still Relevant Today.